Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Charmed. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. We learned a lot more about Macy's situation. Turns out Marisol made a deal with a necromancer to bring her back, but the sacrifice that had to be made is like, you get 2 years as a happy family. After that, if you ever lay eyes on Macy again after that time period, she will die. So that's why Marisol never came after, never was in her life and everything, and just kept her a big secret, because Marisol was like, if I ever meet my daughter again, I will kill her. But so she did everything she could, So it's sad in the end. And, also Macy's dealing with the fact is of oh man, I'm resurrected and everything. That's harsh to deal with. They bring Harry up to speed about this situation too. But what was interesting is Macy decided to call up the necromancer. It ended up being Nancy with a K, interestingly enough. At first she showed up and she looked all normal. I was like, yo, what's up with that? Because that's not how you look like before. It's like, oh, she's actually been living like a normal life for apparently, supposedly, the past 20 years. To be fair, that was her kind of lying and everything like that. But I was like, huh. And she's just kind of like, oh yeah, necromancy doesn't pay the bills and stuff like that. She's running from a witch that was like, yo, resurrect my demon boyfriend. Which is interesting. The fact is they went with that lie. Well, I'm jumping around, but we know it's a lie later on. But at first it's kind of like, huh. I didn't think about it till now. It's just like, oh yeah, just like Phoebe with her. I mean, except there was never any resurrection, and that Cole situation of getting resurrected is a whole other thing. Nevertheless, to the point he doesn't actually get resurrected anymore. They never actually explained it later on, how he came back, when he was trying to get Phoebe to believe in love again. Even that time Piper was doing her own situation, she and Cole had an episode together, later on in the series. Nevertheless, that's me going on a huge tangent. But nevertheless, we interestingly learned a lot about Macy in the regard of her powers, what she can do with her telekinesis, because it's like, oh yeah, you kill that rat with a knife, why don't you just use your powers to stop its heart? And Macy's like, wait, what? It's like, I can do that? It's like, you didn't know? Which is like, huh, interesting. And it kind of makes me, kind of making an Avatar reference, Avatar The Last Airbender specifically. It's kind of like waterbending because, you can bend liquids. It has a darker side of it being like, hey, you can bend blood. So there's that whole aspect to it. So it's kind of similar in the sense of her telekinesis doesn't necessarily have to be on objects. It can be even in something inside of if she wanted to, she could squeeze your heart from the outside. And it's like, dude, that's crazy. I mean, it's interesting because she even threw Sid out the window, and even Maggie's like, yo, where the hell did that come from? It's like, yeah, to this point, she's thrown objects. She's never thrown full-blown people. And so it ends up turning out that when she resurrects people with Candace, I call her Candace, Nancy, the K screwing me up in my head, but Nancy will bring forth light and darkness. And sometimes that darkness can overwhelm someone, and that kind of makes Macy go, holy crap, so it means it can overwhelm me. That might be my future, potentially. And then also Sid's pretty badass. I like her power, little spinball blue flames, which is interesting. I kept thinking this in the entire episode, so I'll kind of talk about it here. It's it's kind of interesting because so far it's the first season they've already met quite a few witches. I feel like in the original series they didn't meet that many witches. At least they were pals with and stuff like that. I mean, it's a complicated situation because Sid was kind of an enemy. I mean, I'm assuming she's kind of an ally now. The Sharkana's kind of in that weird area, but I feel like, I mean, to be fair, I don't remember early Charm, but I feel like they never consistently ran into witches. They ran into bad witches, sure, but never witches. It's just kind of interesting to me. Because I feel like the only recurring witch you ever saw, and at least to my knowledge, was Billy. Billy and her sister, but more so Billy because Billy was the one that kind of ended up being good in the whole run. But it was just kind of interesting to me to think about that. I don't remember them coming across a lot of witches, but like I said, that might just be me not remembering, especially early seasons, especially season 1. I feel like I don't remember that well compared to the rest of the show, but nevertheless. And then this whole thing, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not Sid was innocent in this either. Her taking Maggie and putting her, basically drowning her with a spell. It's yeah, that don't make you look good either, but it's that's kind of the point of it. And then Nancy's because Nancy kept being like, oh, you should kill her and stuff like that. I told you should have killed her. And it's like, but the thing is, it made me kind of sad because it's like, oh, you kind of like Nancy. But I guess that's the whole point, to kind of deceive you a little bit. But then, like, Nancy's telling, Macy to give in to her powers, and she starts squeezing like something inside of Sid's body, making it hard for her to breathe. And she's like, okay, I'll let your sister go, which is like, whoa. And, it took Parker and, Maggie talking to her to try and talk her down. We also found out, it's like, oh, everything Nancy's been saying is a complete and utter lie. She made a deal with a demon. Basically, for every person that she supplies with demon blood, she gets... Every person she resurrects them with demon blood, and she gets to stay young because she talked about necromancers being, aging slowly, and because she wanted to make it seem like, oh, the fact of the matter is we necromancers get a bad rap and stuff like that. It makes you wonder, is that true? Like, are some necromancers actually good? I'm sure it's like there's good witches and there's bad witches. I'm sure the same thing kind of applies amongst necromancers and stuff like that. But it's like, oh wow. Which part of me wonders, who... Like, it never gets resolved or anything. I guess it's not important now. It'll probably come up later on, but it's like, who's the demon she made a deal with? Part of me is thinking, it never comes up, but I'm thinking Parker's dad might be the demon. Because, like, why would you want to... maybe he gets stronger. Like, maybe the whole point is, like, eventually every person gets resurrected. They'll eventually become a demon, and I guess that's more demons out there rather than whoever gets resurrected, whether it be humans or some other creature or... witches, like, whatever the case may be, as long as there's more demons being created, I guess that's all that matters. Is that how... nevertheless, I was about to go down a tangent, but it's... Nevertheless. It's interesting, though, because I guess, like, the whole thing was like, oh, if you try and harm a demon, the deal is broken because the way things got to play out. And she's like, wait, you're a demon. He's like, half demon, but who's counting? And it's like... oh, that kind of screws her over. So it's like no one had to kill her. She kind of got dealt with her on her own. But you still kind of feel a little bad. I mean, to be fair, she turned out to be a terrible person. But still, I mean, she did bring Macy back. But it was kind of like with much more on the table than even like, Marisol at the time realized. You could tell like Macy's dad was kind of super against all of this. But it's like, we're desperate to get our baby back. So it's like, we're willing to do whatever it takes, So... it is an interesting thing, though, because now it's like Macy realizes, like, I will become a demon eventually. It's not a matter of if, kind of a matter of when. And so Nancy wasn't completely wrong about, like, I guess maybe that's the reason why she killed that rat so quickly was because she didn't want Macy to see it turn all demonic, because then it would be like, well, what's going on? So, but to be fair, she wasn't 100% lying either. It's like sometimes the darkness tips the scales and you go dark, and it's like, it's still true. But it's like, that's crazy. Once again, this show, it's so good because it's not like a beat for the original show. It's like it does its own things. It's like none of the original charm ones from the original show were part demon. Once again, it's like they fiddle with so much because it's like, because it's not like, oh, one of her parents was a demon or one of her parents was a white lighter, like in the case of Paige. It's like, no, she was just a full-blown witch and she got brought back from the dead, and lo and behold, she's going to potentially become a demon. It's like, oh, that's so interesting. That's such an interesting, like I said, they're doing their own thing with it, and I think it's so cool. Because this way, it's kind of like you can look at these as two different shows. It's like, if you're familiar with like how I talk about being human, how they can kind of coexist in the same universe when you actually think about it. It's like, I feel like that can apply in this case too. Like, it's not necessarily like, it's funny to think about. Nevertheless. Other things that went down this episode was the whole Maggie and Parker situation. I do like it that Lucy, it's like, oh, come to this party. It's like, oh, like, what is it? Like, traffic light, you basically, red means stop, I'm like, boot up. And green meaning like go and stuff. Like, I was like, that's such an interesting concept for a party. That's actually pretty dope. But Maggie's seeing all these people, but she can't really hit it off with them because, like, she has to basically live her entire life. Because it's like, I can't tell them the truth because no one's going to know me the way Parker does, because Parker knows every aspect about me because he is half a demon and we went through the situation we went through. He still knows parts about me that no one will ever get to know just because I can't tell anyone else. So, and that kind of pisses her off, and she's like, I guess I'll just have to be a nun. But then the whole nun thing probably won't work because I'm a witch. And I'm like, yeah, they probably would frown upon that and stuff. And, Parker kind of laughs, and she's like, you smiling at my nun joke just makes me want to punch you in the face. It's just kind of, it's cute, and you can understand why Maggie's still mad and everything, because it's like, you broke our trust, and plus they think Parker sold them out to their dad, but it's like, no, that was Parker's mom being kind of forced, him doing whole thing of getting like in people's heads and stuff like that, which plays a role, because it's like, hey, he got inside of Lucy's head. Apparently he wants Parker and Maggie together. Because I'll quickly put this out here, because I know it's not the case, but part of me was worried. I was like, oh man, what if we end up, I was like, oh, that sucks, because what if like Maggie and Lucy becoming friends again was all part of his plan? But then I thought about it, I was like, no, because at that time he wanted Parker to use their relationship, so it's like, it just in my head, I was thinking like, oh, maybe he facilitated, and manipulated Lucy and Maggie to being friends again. But it's like, no, like, this is well after them already becoming friends again, that the whole like Parker thing came out and everything. So I was like, no, he only just got control of Lucy recently. Like, that's where I'm like, my mind's pretty much kind of more being like, yeah, that's totally the case. But it's still kind of sad, because it's like he wants them together, but for what reason? He needs two to become one. Why? Is it because of Parker being like, maybe it's some kind of, well, I would assume this has to deal with him being the source of all evil. Like he's meant to be like the host for the source of all evil. So I'm assuming this has to be because of something like that, because it's like, you have to be half human, half demon. So there's that. Plus, like, I guess specifically a charmed one, and because Maggie's already infatuated with him, it's a little bit of a less issue in comparison to the other sisters. Or maybe it's specifically because she's an empath that's necessary. I feel like it's more so probably like a charmed one situation of like, it's a recipe of half human, half demon, and charmed one to kind of create and make him, because it's like two have to become one. That's what I chalked that up to. I don't know. That's definitely interesting, especially because, Maggie's like, I don't hate you, so that has to be enough. For now, you see Parker kind of be excited, because it's like, yeah, okay, like, things are looking good between him and Maggie. I mean, obviously it's going to take a while for things to kind of get back, but, Maggie's biggest issue was because she was so frustrated because she didn't hate Parker. There was always a part of her that's like, I still like and care for him even though he lied and manipulated me, so there's that. Then there's the whole Mel and Nico situation. It's like, you're stalking her on the internet and stuff like that, like her social medias and stuff. It's like, yeah, I just want to know, how this new timeline, how things are different from her, how she went from like being a detective to like an investigator, a PI and stuff like that, which is like, it's more than it seemed like at first it was curiosity, because I was like, you just want to, like, obviously Mel just wanted to make sure that Nico was happy with her life, which she is, but at the same time it's like, for her, let's not forget, it still hasn't been that long since her and Nico, never happened type of situation, And so for her, like, that's the curse of it. It's like she remembers everything even though Nico doesn't. So it's like, it's obviously like a thing of like, you're around your ex. She doesn't realize she's your ex, but she's there, and, your heart kind of goes pitter-patter, doki doki, and you just, kind of get swept up in the moment, because it just feels like old times, especially like, wait, why'd you choose this, like, coffee place? It's like, I don't know, I was just walking past here, and I was like, okay. Because it does seem like she is starting to kind of have, like, little seeps of, the spell are kind of breaking. I think they are cracking to certain extents. It's just kind of interesting that in the long haul, like, everything just ended up, it just, it seems a little too coincidental. Maybe it's like you are meant to be together, just because it's like she found her way back into your life. Even with a spell that literally rewrote the past 2 years of her life, she still managed to find her way into your life. I think that speaks volumes. Maybe Mel's kind of thinking that on some level too. But then, like, Nico saw the lightning scar on her, which I'm like, where'd you get that? I was like, right, I forgot, like, you guys fought before, like, you and Jada kind of had fought before, so it's like, that's where that had come from. Wasn't that it? If I remember correctly? Or was it just purely from their, because I forgot what inspired her to look at their mom's situation. It was like, oh yeah, mom had those, I think that's from them fighting Jada earlier on, or maybe that has something to do with, like, Jada channeling her powers through, I don't remember. I think it was just from the first time they fought. Either way, she had it, and then Nico's kind of like, well, deja vu, and it's like, well, to be fair, she probably looked into Mary Saul's death and saw those same scars, or maybe this has something to do with just this present day with, like, stuff that Jada did, kind of like the very, like, stuff that, maybe Mel isn't doesn't know about. Maybe it's like, oh, maybe Jade has left some bodies at some point in time, and that's what that is. Because even at the end of it, like Nico's looking that up, so it's like it could be either one. But my head, I don't know. I'm kind of leaning both ways. Like it's gonna be interesting if it was because it's her remembering Marisol's case, and because for her, she's all, like even opening up to Mel, because it's like something there. Like even as powerful as the spell is, I think, like I said, that love between them is too strong, and it's literally breaking and cracking the spell to a certain extent. Like everything they were doing, like obviously in the end, Harry, and Mel kind of distanced themselves from their respective situation, because it's like pulling Mel away from like the whole Nico thing, because Harry does the same thing. For one, ends up teleporting them to Manchester, and it opens up like, yeah, I have to quit being a white lighter because of my whole situation, because I'm so divided right now. I can't, my powers aren't going to work right, so I can't be there for you. But he learns like, hey, my real name is James, because apparently the elders give you a new name. I guess it makes sense, because the whole point is to take all your memories. So if you have your real name, of course you're going to look yourself up and try and learn about your past, but they need you 100% devoted to this mission. I mean, that's actually something like, that whole aspect is something that Harry could relate to with, Macy, the whole being resurrected situation and just being confused about it. It's not the exact same situation, but still. Obviously, she was a baby, and obviously Harry actually led a different life before being resurrected into a white lighter. But, learned he had a wife named Clara and a son named Carter. Actually track him down. So it turns out that, because it was what I thought. I was like, yeah, is he going to, like, depending on the year and stuff like that. And it turns out, yeah, he is like a great grandfather. And but he decides not to meet Carter, because it's like, all I'm going to do is complicate things, because I don't want to meet him under false pretenses, enter their lives like that. Just no. And I can't tell them the truth either, because that's just too much to kind of put on someone's hands. Plus, probably can't tell them the truth anyway. But I mean, it seems like he could, but it's just like he doesn't want to. You do see that kind of sweet and yet sad moment of like Carter waving to him, because you can tell like Carter's like, wait, something. He was a little boy when his dad died, so it's like, of course you're not going to remember after all these years, these decades. Like it's going to slip your mind, but you can tell like it was like, why you look so familiar? Because even look back, it's like probably felt something, but by the time you look back, like Mel and Harry are already gone. So the hardships of having to distance yourself from the people you care about, because this is what you need. It has to be enough for now, knowing that, hey, he's happy and he's healthy and he's led a good life and he has a family, knowing that, even when it's all said and done, he can't be with his son. The very fact is knowing that his son's out there, and knowing that he has more family himself out there, Harry. So, well, James. I wonder will they go to calling him James, or will they call him Harry? I mean, if they're like, I doubt they can do anything about it, like him learning about his past and stuff like that. We're going to do erase his memory more again. I guess if it becomes too much of an issue. But I mean, the fact is he is back and his powers are in full swing again. So I think it's not much of an issue. So I think that they're okay on that front, but still. But that was enough to kind of make Mel kind of pull away from Nico too, because realizing like, no, this is the right thing to do. To be fair, Nico's situation, that whole thing with Mel, like that's definitely not going away. That's going to continue. But I'm curious to see will the whole thing with Harry continue or not. Or, what's going to become of that, or will anything happen because of it? We'll just kind of have to wait and see. I kind of feel like this was probably the closing chapter in that regard, but you never know. But definitely this Nico thing, I'm very interested to see what they ultimately end up doing about that, and what ends up happening if the spell breaks, because it was a time spell. So like if it does break and she remembers, what's going to happen? I feel like that's probably too much for somebody's brain. Like 2 timelines in your head is like, that's kind of like the Flashpoint thing of like 2 timelines. It's your head's trying to your head's like being overwritten. Like your memories, well, the Flashpoint thing was like, it was your memories are being overwritten, but having 2 timelines in your head will kill you, I feel like. Based on like some 12 Monkeys stuff, like that just becomes too much for your body to handle. So I get the feeling like that might end up putting Nico in danger. It probably won't undo the spell and revert the time to the way it originally was. It'll probably just make it so that she remembers, yet she exists in this new timeline and stuff, which that in itself will bring up a whole bunch of questions. Might even make Nico think of herself as crazy. Like I said, that's all just speculation I'm throwing out there. Also, I did forget to talk about the other big thing that happened in where Macy was like, yo, going to Parker's mom and be like, you're trying to help your son. I get it. You've been studying my blood. Okay, so you help get the demon out of me. I'll help get the demon out of your son. So it's like, oh, now that's really, really interesting. They're conspiring together while Maggie and Parker kind of doing their thing, which in turn ends up being a thing that his dad's concocting too. So, and we never talk about it, but let's not forget his brother's still trapped in Tartarus too. So, a lot of interesting things. Like I said, I'm very interested to see where this all takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.